After giving tours of my car to my family yesterday and creating a video to show you the modifications and updates that I have made while living in my car over the last month and a half, I decided that it was time to finally install the camera system that I have been planning to create. So today I will spend the day designing, building, and installing a camera system for my car, which will allow me to see outside when I am in the car with the blackout panels installed. It is good timing for this system because my cross-country trip will require me to try a lot of new sleeping locations. Being able to see outside without taking down the blackout panels and revealing myself inside will really help to give me peace of mind and keep me safe while staying in unfamiliar locations. To get started, I had already ordered the supplies that I will need. Those supplies include small micro cameras that are usually used to build drones or other radio-controlled devices. I also bought USB adapters, some 22 gauge wire connectors, heat shrink wrap, a USB port with on-off switches, and a small LCD wireless monitor. The tools that I will use include a soldering iron, a wire stripper, and a heat gun. I will put links to all of the supplies in the description below. Here are the supplies unpacked and laid out on the table at the house where we are staying in Branson. My plan is to install one camera in a blackout panel in the back of the car and a camera on each side of the car. I may install a front camera later, but I'm not sure yet where to install that camera since I need to keep the windshield clear so I can install and remove the sunscreen. To make this system work, I will need to wire power to each of the cameras. The cameras get very hot when they are on, so I will connect them using the USB port with the switches that I can use to turn the cameras on and off, using them only as needed. So, the first thing to do is to solder connectors to the USB adapters. Each USB adapter will plug into one of the USB ports to provide power for an individual camera and one to provide power for the monitor. I am wiring them with connectors so they can be easily unplugged. I always like to use connectors when building electronic components that are wired together so the parts can be disconnected for easy installation and to replace parts as needed. After soldering the wire connector to the USB adapter, I use heat shrink wire wrap to protect the exposed wire where it was soldered. I put the wire wrap tubing on the wire before soldering it, and I use a heat gun to shrink it in place. After that, I use a larger wrap to cover the exposed pins on the back of the USB adapter. It is always a good idea to cover exposed terminals on any electronic device so that something doesn't get shorted out if the connectors happen to come in contact with metal or other wires. Next, I install the cameras in the panels. Here are the side panels. I drilled holes in them that are just the right size for the camera lenses to poke through and be held snugly in place. After placing the cameras in the panels, then I get the small connectors that will connect to the pre-wired cameras. These are standard 1.25 millimeter 2-pin connectors, and I will solder them to the wire that I will run from the cameras to the USB port. I first strip the wire covering to expose more of the wires on the connectors. Then I do the same with the wire that I will use to run from the cameras to the USB port. Next, I solder the wires together. After that, I use a heat gun to shrink the protective wire wrap around the point where I soldered. As I mentioned earlier, this will keep the exposed wires from touching metal or other wires and causing a short. Unfortunately, I forgot to put the wire wrap tubing on one of the wires before I soldered them together, but that's okay. I can simply use electrical tape and wrap the solder point on that cable. You can do the same if you don't have shrink wrap and a wire heat gun. After wiring everything, then I install the panels with the cameras in the car, run the wiring to the central point where I mounted the USB port with Velcro onto the refrigerator next to where I sleep, and then I connect everything together. The USB port is plugged into the Jackery power station next to my refrigerator to provide power to the whole camera system. So, let's try it out. The first button on the USB port turns on the monitor, which receives the wireless signals from the cameras. The second button turns on the camera on the driver's side of the car. The third button turns on the camera on the rear of the car. And the fourth and final button turns on the camera on the passenger side of the car. This system works well, but I may decide to upgrade the quality of the monitor and the cameras at some point. I am not completely happy with the clarity and definition, but this will definitely do for now. I will also need to upgrade to a USB port with more USB outlets if I want to add additional cameras like a front camera. Well, that is my video for today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.